Today I want to talk about The Farmer's Dog, Jeremy Clarkson's latest book. Now if you're expecting a full-on farming manual, this isn't it. And if you're expecting just another Clarkson rant, well, it's not quite that either. This book, however, is funny, it's opinionated, and sometimes angry, sometimes surprisingly thoughtful as well. And given what's happening right now in the UK's farming industry, it's actually very topical. So let's explore the book in full and if it's really worth picking up. And of course, if you get anything from this video, make sure you like and subscribe down below. Let's get into it. The book is made up of Clarkson's newspaper columns, so it's broken into short, punchy chapters. That makes it very easy to dip in and out of, but it also means that each chapter tends to focus on one idea, one frustration, or one observation. Straight away, the tone is set in the very first chapter. There's nothing to see here, which is all about goats. Clarkson talks about Lisa having sheep, but what really unsettles him is the fact that they don't seem to have faces. This is what they look like, so you can see his point. And that genuinely made me laugh. It starts the book off on a really good foot. You immediately know what you're getting into. Then he comes out with this line. Get goats, they'll do the gardening for you, they're cheaper than keeping a dog, and they won't turn your children into drug addicts or vegetarians. That is such a Clarkson line to say, and I laughed my way straight into the next chapter, which is called Only Farmers. In Only Farmers, Clarkson talks about Caleb Cooper and how unbelievably knowledgeable he is about farming, but at the same time completely clueless about things like films or music. It's quite funny that Jeremy finds this genuinely annoying, and he spirals a bit into worrying that this is where the younger generation is heading. Now you might roll your eyes at that, but it does show Clarkson's personality really clearly. He's both fascinated by and frustrated with the world changing around him, and that tension, it runs through the whole book. One thing I notice much more in this book compared to some of his earlier ones is that Clarkson is more openly political, but, and this is important, it makes sense. Because so many of the things being discussed in the news right now directly affects farmers. This book is about farming, so it would feel odd if he didn't talk about it. He touches on YouTube wormholes and how people can fall into echo chambers and end up with completely skewed views of reality when they stay online and read everything that they see. He's actually quite critical of it, but I actually think the underlying message that he's trying to state is about staying open-minded and not assuming that you've got the full picture. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a Clarkson book without mentioning cars. At one point, he almost slips into a written car review, specifically the Isuzu D-Max pickup truck. It's actually really enjoyable. He talks about how pickup trucks are being heavily taxed or even effectively banned for farmers, which he argues is completely backwards, and I agree with him. These vehicles are tools, not lifestyle accessories, and punishing farmers for needing them just doesn't make sense. And that ties nicely into a great point that he makes about economics. Now, in this particular chapter, Jeremy says that he finds it bizarre that global organisations can predict and effectively influence the price of wheat and grain years in advance. And yet, if you go into a shop and say, sell a candle for instance, you can price it however you like. It's just not the same. As someone new to farming, he finds this deeply odd, and honestly I think a lot of people don't realise that this is how food pricing really works. It is a really good chapter to highlight because it pulls back the curtain on something most of us never really think about. Now for a big one, in the chapter Young MacDonald Doesn't Have a Farm, Clarkson gets properly angry. He talks about changes to inheritance tax, particularly farmland no longer being exempt, and mentioning Rachel Reeves and the budget decisions. This is very much today's news, and I think it's important. I don't want to get overly political here, but I do think that this chapter alone is worth reading just to understand Clarkson's thinking. You don't have to agree with him, but it does explain why farmers feel under constant pressure. Now that theme continues in Come the Revolution, where he argues that farmers are being slowly disengaged from doing the job that they're actually trying to do. And of course, his core message is very simple. It is important to stand with farmers. In all of the following chapters, this one right here, there's a brilliant Jeremy moment where he talks about oat milk. He argues that it's not milk, it's moisture. And then he points out that oat milk has to be treated with thickeners, preservatives, and flavourings, and therefore, according to science, it is ultra-processed Frankenstein food. Whether you agree or not, it's very funny and very on brand of Clarkson. Cars again now, he takes a swipe at the modern Land Rover Defender. Specifically, he talks about shopping hooks in the back, and he says he doesn't see many farmers hanging their bags while transporting a sheep. It's a small point, I must admit, but it neatly ties together his farming experience with his years as a car journalist, and it's one of those observations that once you hear it, you can't unsee it. There's also a brief but interesting section where Clarkson talks about the gypsy community. He admits that he finds them intimidating to a certain extent, but also says that he makes a real effort to keep a good relationship with them. And that respect goes both ways, even when they tried to camp on his land. I thought that was quite refreshing and human, actually. One of my favourite chapters has to be this. It's waste not, want not. Clarkson actually compares farmers to that kitchen junk drawer, the one full of batteries, elastic bands, paper clips, and things you might need one day. He says farmers keep everything. Bits of twine, bits of scrap metal, some old tyres, whatever it is really, they store it. He said that his farmyard was starting to look a little bit messy because a certain someone has been doing that on his farmyard. So Jeremy tries to tidy up the farmyard while Caleb was on holiday, and he gets it completely spick and span. And the moment Caleb returns, he unloads a lorry with a pallet on it and he dumps it straight into the hedge. It's chaotic and very entertaining, especially if you know someone in farming. There's also a surprisingly gentle chapter where Jeremy talks about helping the cattle, basically acting as a cow midwife. He says it's one of the most rewarding things that he's ever done, and I genuinely thought that was really nice to read. It shows just how much the farmers changed him in such a short space of time. There's also another interesting chapter where Jeremy explains how his autonomous tractor maps soil quality, it adjusts seed distribution, and ultimately helps improve crop yield. And I actually thought he made a really great point, which is driverless cars are pointless because driving them is the whole point. But autonomous tractors, well, they're out in the field where you could be sleeping. Is it really any different from those autonomous lawnmowers or, you know, the vacuum cleaners that you get to go around your house? And those things save time, and saving time lets you live your life. He's very clear that this isn't about replacing farmers, it is about helping them. Read the book and you'll understand exactly what he means. Now, in the very last chapter, Clarkson reflects on seasons changing. He says that when he lived in London, he never really noticed it, but now he sees how it affects his mental health, how it gives him something to look forward to. Different flowers, different crops, different light. This is where I just want to add my own thoughts, because I really think it is important, especially if you work in, say, an office, to step away from screens sometimes and go for a long walk, because, well, what's the alternative? Use technology as a time saver, not as a replacement for living. That's exactly what he said about the autonomous tractor. So it's important to go for that long walk. Go up a mountain if you have to. Get outside of your front door. Overall, I really enjoyed The Farmer's Dog. It's funny, it's informative, and occasionally infuriating, and very human as well. It's also worth remembering that these were newspaper columns and he's turned them into a book, and realistically every copy sold probably helps keep the farm afloat. Because, as from what I seen earlier when I popped into the supermarket for a few bits, they were selling off vegetables for less than 5p. I mean, how can anyone be expected to make a living on that? Seriously, it just doesn't make sense. More importantly, it reminds us that farmers don't make huge amounts of money, and rather than feeling sorry for them, the best thing we can do is support them. That's why it's important to go to farm shops, to go to local markets, and to buy good food. Spend a little bit more and do your bit, because at the end of the day, it affects all of us. However, I'll talk more about food in another video very soon, so stay tuned for that and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. As for the rating, I'd give this book probably an 8, a very strong 8 out of 10. It was a really easy read and I got through it in no time at all, especially with a few chapters where I laughed my way through it. If you've read it, let me know what you thought. What chapters stood out to you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't read it, then I definitely recommend picking it up. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video, whatever that may be. See you soon. Cheers.